So thank you.
Yeah, of course. So Shawna had started her own live stream, so hopefully whoever was over on hers can hop over onto this one.
I see some have, yeah. Awesome.
You go out, Danny. Yeah, so let's just give it maybe like 1 or 2 more minutes while we continue to do a little overview for some of the folks who are just joining us now of what we're gonna get into today. And I think
that sounds good.
Is a little bit unknown. Why don't I start off just introducing myself for anybody who doesn't know me. My name is Patrick Hefferman. I live in New York. I teach yoga at a studio up here called Mind, Body, Soul Yoga. An amazing little small business studio that's up in the Washington Heights community and has really kept me afloat over the last 4 to 5 years of my living here, and is in a way continuing to do that through this pandemic situation. And that's a lot of the reason why I'm feeling called to sort of keep on looking through this lens of yoga to help address how I'm feeling in this situation, how I'm listening in this situation, and how I'm engaging in this situation. Shawna, feel free to do your own.
Thank you, Patrick. I also teach and work at Mind, Body, Soul Yoga in Washington Heights here in New York City. And I see a lot of wonderful people joining us. So hello to all of you. And yes, Patrick and I wanted to create this place so that we could have conversation. And Patrick and I have been having a lot of conversations in the past week, and it felt right to include all of you and to make it become a little bit more public and in a space where we can offer you also a circle. So I'm imagining that we're all sitting in a circle right now.
I love that. If you don't mind sharing, because I know this is something that you and I have discussed a little bit already, Shawna, how we're almost using ourselves as guinea pigs in a way in this situation. We are learning these teachings, whether they're yogic teachings, honestly, any kind of teaching, social teaching, and we're sort of applying them to our own lives, and it's almost like a bit of an experiment in a way. And I know for me that this platform feels a little vulnerable. Would you mind sharing anything that might be vulnerable about this experience for you?
First of all, just getting in here. Technologically, this is the first time I've done a joint live. It's probably only the second time I've ever done a live. So hiccups like that happening always make me feel vulnerable and a little bit like embarrassed, like, oh, well, I should have prepared, or I should have known how to do this. There's a lot of expectation, which maybe some of us are feeling that, like in this circumstance of what we're all going through, we might have our own self-imposed expectations. Well, I should have been prepared. I should know how to handle this. But then back to the vulnerability piece, this platform creates if you will, a sense of vulnerability. Like I'm looking at, we've had some people come and some people go already. I see some people that are with us that I admire, and I would want to, then I'm thinking, who am I to be doing this? It should be them with Patrick, not myself. But those are just all the voices that are there that, this week we're in the 5th chakra as I'm going through the system of the chakras of my classes. And that's a question I've been asking myself and inviting students to ask them lately, which is, what voices within yourself are you giving weight to? What are the ones that are speaking the loudest? And what are ones that are whispering that you want them to become louder? Surf in Your Soul says, I'm having trouble with connection. You are freezing. Maybe it's on my side. It might be on your side, just because I'm not experiencing that.
Either right now, and she is in like the middle of nowhere in New Mexico. If you saw, that's my mom.
Oh, oh wow.
And if you saw a picture, and Rob is having some lag problems too. I gotta be honest,
Okay.
I'm not sure what to do about that right now. I will say that we're gonna try to get this entire conversation recorded and posted back. So, again, kind of first time around. If anybody has any recommendations of what to do to fix it, please
let us know.
Otherwise,
yeah,
Shawna and I might just selfishly, in a way, continue on having this amazing conversation that is as much for all of you. And it's kind of one of the things I just wanted to bring up. As much as this is for everyone out here listening, this conversation is so much for me. This conversation is so much about me just getting to like pick Shawna's knowledgeable brain. I met Shawna for the first time about 2 weeks ago, and okay, Rob had to turn off Wi-Fi to make it better, so he's also plugging his network. So thank you to Verizon.
Okay.
That is.
Yeah. I agree. It's as much for me as it is for everyone, and that speaks a lot to what I always feel about workshops and classes and retreats is that where I'm a part, I'm also still a participant, even though perhaps I'm facilitating, but we're in this together, as we keep saying.
Totally.
Yeah, we just met a few weeks ago.
Yeah. And like by the end of the class, I was like, this is my teacher. This person is like a teacher to me. She is exposing me to new teachings, new truths in a way. It's a question I've been grappling with all the time lately. How do we know if something is true? And who is it to decide whether it's something true or not? You can get into this question of objectivity or subjectivity, but one of the things I'm really starting to explore with is that it's my truth, no matter what. You know, if it's something that resonates with me, it is my truth. And I think I want to pull up one of these quotes from Shawna. Maybe while I pull up the quote, you could enlighten these people a little bit about who NODH is, because I think you know a lot more.
Sure, yeah, and I know a lot of people here. Another one said that the problem resolved when they exited and restarted, so maybe others could. Thank you, Crowder 3636. No, but all the words that you were using, not ironically, it's all connected to that fifth chakra. So the first thing that came up, back and forth. I'll just speak to that first, and then I'll tell you who Anadia Judith is, and if I forget, just remind me, because that's how my mind flows often.
For you.
Nice, thank you. The first thing that came up is, how do we know what is true? And the fifth chakra, the throat center, reminds us that it is within the silence that we come into resonance with the vibrations. And it was actually Sri Aurobindo who said it's in that silence that we can hear the vibrations and hear the resonance, and to do so is to capture them. And that, I'm sort of paraphrasing that, but when we ask the question, what is my truth, or I've been asking the question lately, just what's the truth of this moment? We have to take some time to actually listen And that's something that perhaps not a lot of us have been doing lately because of the immediacy of all that's happening all the time on a daily basis, is taking time to listen.
Yeah, and I will get back to this quote, but it's kind of the theme of our discussion today. What you just said about it's something that all of us may not be doing. I'm actually on the flip side of that situation. Right?
Yeah.
And I'll just be
Yeah.
honest with everybody here. I'm having an amazing quarantine. I've found myself with more time on my hands than I've ever had, and for whatever reason, the events of my life leading up until last week have prepared me in a way to use this time in a way that has been purposeful, in a way that keeps me engaged, in a way that is continuing to anchor me in an inquiry of my truth, right? So like the anchoring can be open-ended. You know what I mean? This truth thing is malleable, and it shifts and it changes. Getting back to how do we know what it is? I just love this quote. She mentions it like power, and I think truth is power. We can think about it that way. She says, "What is power? Where do we get it? How do we use it? Why do we need it? How do we avoid its unbalanced duality of victimization and abuse, aggression and passivity, dominance and submission? Where do we find our own empowerment without diminishing that of others?" Which to me is like, that's that question of, can I have my truth? And can you have your truth? And can it not be false, right? Does it have to be something so binary or dualistic? Just going on here. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So this comes from Anodia Judith, who I've studied with, and she is an expert within the system of the chakras and correlating the Eastern philosophies with Western. And there's the book right there, Eastern Body, Western Mind. And she's written other ones. But Patrick, as you were speaking, what came up for me was here you and I are on two what you might call opposing ends. And opposing can often have a word of negative connotation, but it's not negative here. We're just on opposite ends or opposing ends of a spectrum where you are embracing this time. It's been a gift. It's amazing. And I'm kind of not so much.
Why don't you
not having as much time?
Why don't you fill some of our listeners or whatever in on the circumstances of your life?
Sure, and I know if Tanya's still here, she probably resonates because she's a mother of two like myself, so that's why. And schools are closed here in New York, so I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and a dog and a husband, and he's a teacher, so he's home. And I was thinking today how if COVID-19 had come up when I was in my 20s, I would most likely be in where your position is, Patrick. But I'm in the position that I'm in where I'm just lucky right now that everybody's in the bedroom behind me taking a nap. Otherwise, those moments where I would have had a lot of space and been embracing it with reading books and meditating and taking everybody's practices online or walking, I'm sometimes struggling with who gets my attention, where I'm putting my attention, and also craving my own alone time and my own space.
I was just going to interject and really making sure that you prioritize yourself as somebody who deserves that attention as much as anybody else in your life, whether it's your children, your husband, your dog.
And there's where maybe the power might come in, right, is evoking my will to step into my truth and speak authentically and say from a compassionate heart. So there's entailing a couple of chakras right there. But hey, dear husband, dog, children, mommy's going to go take a shower, you know, or something of that nature. And because kids do it really freely without thinking. You know, my 4-year-old is like, I want this, I want that. So bringing it, circling back to that, the power in correlation with what is our truths, what are the truths of our moment right now. Do we feel like we have a right to speak up? Because perhaps I know for myself, I feel grateful. I know a lot of people have more dire situations. You know, I have food, I have water, I have shelter, I have enough money to continue to buy food. So, you know, that plays in a part with, I think, the victimization and power. And then, well, yeah, there's a lot more there. It's like, well, maybe then I use my voice or use some of my power, use some of my abilities to help others as best I can.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a friend earlier today, and it just kind of came up like, you know, we're worried about the people who are sick or have the virus. Obviously, a lot of worry there. But he said something along the lines of like, you know, we're all going to be fine. The people at home, the people who are healthy. And I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if that's the case. Because the mental health situation in our country as it is today was dire before this situation happened. So what I think what starts to happen as we find ourselves starting to work within a very specific set of limitations and boundaries, and we don't have all the options or opportunities that were available to us before, is that panic and anxiety starts to ramp up a little bit more, you know, and it creates this like almost not enough feeling within ourselves, this feeling of lack, this feeling of being scared. And when we start to operate from that place, not only do the stakes become very high, we are basing our actions off of an intention of doubt and fear and lack. And those actions sometimes become violent or hurtful. And we look back and we say, oh my gosh, I didn't mean that. It was in the context of the situation. In hindsight, I was wrong. But why are we misstepping in the first place is my, and then I forget a little bit how I got onto that. So if we can be careful and mindful to, rather than identify with this place of lack, it's I'm scared, I'm fearful. There was a great Pema quote I just read, Pema Chodron quote I was reading the other day. Those things are just like the clouds. That's like what passes. It's this noble heart, bodhicitta, that she likes to talk about. That's the thing that's always consistent. That's the thing that's always going to be there. And if we can tether our actions and intentions to that place, rather than the more superficial, you know, fear and doubt that sort of float around our experience, that's going to feel a little more stable, because this is always going to be with us. This noble heart is always going to be with us. It's the fear, the other stuff shifts constantly.
Yeah, I feel that I am privileged, however, that I've never been in a place that, and those of you who are with us, feel free to write comments or join in about how you might be thinking or feeling about all of this. So privileged that I've never been in a place where ultimately I'm in a dire place of great lack. So I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a person that is homeless or has is now homeless because of the situation and without job and without money to buy food, and how they might be listening to this going, oh, this is a whole bunch of malarkey. You know, how do you expect me to stay connected to that heart-centeredness when I can't even find food? Like they're in, you know, that first chakra of I just got to survive. Once I am surviving, then I might be able to think more this way. And yet simultaneously, I'm sure we've all posed that question to ourselves, where if I were in a situation of, you know, for some reason the word hysteria is coming. If I were placed in a situation where I had to be making decisions that are like life and death or seem so heavy, how would I show up? You know, like, can I I don't know, honestly, to be truthful. I don't know how I would act. I like to hope and think that I would act from a heart place.
Well, it's interesting that you're saying that about, you know, the circumstances of somebody who's living homeless. Because it's actually the route that these monks and these sannyasins and sadhus, they end up renunciating, like all worldly possessions. They end up kind of becoming homeless, and it becomes a part of their, I forget who it was I was speaking about this with, but you know, begging here is a very kind of like frowned upon thing. It's like if someone comes panhandling or whatever, it's not. In the East, it's actually a part of a tradition to go out and beg for alms and ask for offering. And there were these different social ladders and social circles that were a part of the institution in India. And it was the responsibility of this social circle to support, not fully, but to give a little bit of an offering. And it was just always expected. Not something that we're so much accustomed to here, but also I wouldn't be so quick to say that, because many of the New Yorkers I know will be quick to pull up and you know, $1 to somebody who's asking, and that's kind of a whole other conversation maybe about the. And
it's kind of interesting though. A couple of things, like over in the East, I where I've been. They often wear, you know, the saffron-colored robes, or we know that they are a practicing renunciate. So when they ask, it's like, it almost feels like an honor to help them in a way. For me, it did, because I knew they were on a path, which feels...
It's really interesting. You're seeing them, you're listening to them, and you're honoring their path, and you're contributing towards it.
Yeah, which is interesting, because I'm thinking of, you know, panhandlers in the subway, and sometimes I feel that I'm in my human judging state, in that negative way, where it's like, oh, you look like you're a drug user or this or that. Do I want to support that path? And maybe not. However, this is reminding me of when I went to see Amma, the hugging saint of India, and she was here in New York. This was years ago, and when I had a lot of time, no kids, and I just was sitting there observing all the people go up and receive a hug, and it was a couple hours before it was my number and to get a hug. But while I was sitting there, I was thinking, shouldn't we greet and hug all people in such a way? In such a way, meaning that we recognize that we all have the divine within us, or the light within us, the godliness within us, however you name it. And that has always stuck out to me. You know, the hug did give me a high, and I didn't really sleep, and I was still totally able to go into the coffee shop and open it up. at 5:30 in the morning the next day, but that stuck out, and I think that it's speaking to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, which just brings it back to that heart-centeredness. And that there was another quote that came up while we were talking about, because I was thinking about this today. I believe it comes from Donna Markova and her book, I Will Not Live an Unlived Life. And the quote is, my path is no greater or less than yours. It's just the only one I know how to make authentically. So definitely beauty and things. I'm a hugger and miss that kind of interaction. Definitely.
Yeah.
Me too.
As soon as you finish your thought, Shawna.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that comes back to that heart-centeredness, and how can we, in these times, remember to honor that and see that within ourselves, as if we were Amma or whomever. And then as well as others, especially in a time, maybe this is a nice segue for beauty and things, when we can't hug physically.
Yeah, I mean, my thought exactly, and it's a situation that I've been presented with like a couple of times in the last week or so, when I've seen people I love and I'm very close to, and my usual thing is to go and hug them. And it really has ended up turning into like a little dance, like a, touch elbows instead, hey, wave, and all the beauty and the intention of the hug gets kind of splattered all over the place. And it's interesting to me that, like, instead we can't just look at each other and like make eye contact for a second. It's not easy to do these days. Eye contact is a challenge for me, for sure, and I'm for a lot of other people. Folks, if you're watching, let us know. Maybe you have a preference, eye contact versus hugging. It's a deeply personal, deeply personal thing, and not only to look into somebody else's eyes, but to have your eyes looked into. You sort of feel like you're doing your own Instagram live stream, and you're like, I'm being watched right now, I'm being seen, and it's like you're not sure of what the other person is seeing, and that's fascinating. How could we ourselves be unsure about what the other? That leads me to believe that then we are unsure of what lies within our eyes or within ourselves, our own expression. So
That's a
hug alternative that uses eye contact a little more closely. I've got my friend back here.
nice. Oh, hello.
Hugging and social distancing.
So cute. Who is that?
This is Mac, our new dog in the apartment. Say hi, buddy.
Hi, Mac. Mac is super cute. Now, it's interesting that you say that, because I ran into a friend of mine with my family on the street, and I loved what she said. She said, isn't it interesting how much more animated we've all become in greeting each other? So I love your splattering of emotion. But it's also interesting because I've been forcing myself more than I normally do when I walk the dog by myself to make eye contact with people. Because, and this came up on another conversation that I was with just today, because I want that person to know they're not alone, because I don't know what they're going through. And holding that sense of wonder is something that is always an underlying value and constant that I try to connect to in my life, which came from my dad via Parker Palmer, who does a lot of group work. But holding that sense of wonder. But I also realize in the same moment my truth, that not only do I want them to know that they're being seen and they're loved, whether we say anything or not, but I need that. I get a little emotional. Like, I need that connection. I mean, I don't know, I can feel into this more, but I feel almost prepared to say that I'm actually feeling my humanness, of desire for connection.
I mean, 320,000%. I support that. Yeah, I completely support that statement.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
like,
think I've always felt that.
yeah, really, thank you for sharing that. Deeply personal thing, and it's a really strong message coming from you. I'm just jotting down like all the notes as we talk, because you're saying so many helpful things for me, and I want to remember here what we can be discussing. But first, let me backtrack. We both listened to that Lori, what's her last name? Interview.
I don't remember. And I didn't listen to the whole thing, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's people, check this podcast out if you haven't already. Tim Ferriss, and you might actually be able to describe the podcast a little better than I could, Shawna.
He interviews people. I see some hearts floating up. That's awesome. Tim Ferriss is the guy that wrote 4-Hour Workweek, 4-Hour Body, but that was back in the day where he was all about like efficiency and optimization, etc., like super type A. But in the past, most recent past, he's done his own inner work, and now he is interviewing people like Brene Brown and Lisa Gottlieb and, Jack Kornfield. That one was super powerful. And so, because he realizes that the hardest work is the inner work.
The hardest work is the inner work. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like I work like my body at the gym and all these things, but we don't put that much attention on inner work. We're so outer, especially in the West, especially in 2020. I think we're very outer.
Well, and this, it brings it full circle back to where we started this live. And I haven't been looking at the time, but we have plenty of time.
The time's flying.
Full circle where we started at, which is what are we doing with this time? Because some people do have a lot of time, and we can't go, like the other day I was like, dad's home, he could watch the kids, let me go get a massage. And then it's like, oh, no, you can't do that. So what are we doing with this time in this space? And it is, I assume, not so much myself because of kids, but it is giving people this alone time where they might catch themselves being bored or just scrolling down through stuff or watching movie after movie, and then perhaps maybe at the end of the day they're not feeling so great about themselves because they feel like they've wasted the day. And myself included to a certain level. This brings us full circle back to one of those questions that we did want to present today. So, those of you who are with us now, like, how are you? Do you have a lot of extra time? What are you doing in that time? How are you feeling about it? And are you doing any of this inner work? Are you taking opportunity to be silent within yourself and to notice just what you notice? And that's kind of brings me back to this question I've been asking lately, which is, what is the truth of this moment? So, for example, like as I sit here, I'm sitting on my heels, and I physically noticed earlier where I stretched back because we were talking about the heart, and I felt a little more open, and I am not as embarrassed, so my cheeks are less fleshed, and I'm feeling a little more comfortable. So that's part of the essence of the truth of this moment, and then the other truths are still there, like, the truth of what's going on in the world and what are,
You saying that to me, I just wrote down truth of the moment versus our truth, right? Because there's always going to be something going on
Good one.
We will always perceive the world as we, individually, let me just use myself as an example. I will only ever perceive the world as I perceive the world, right? And that's,
Yep.
I could even find problems in that sentence, but that's the relationship I'm talking about cultivating with inner truth, our own truth, okay? Now, how we then meet the truth of the moment, there's stuff that we don't have control over, right? So much of the teachings everywhere say that the only thing and only person we have control over in our lives, despite what's happened in our long, complicated history, ourselves. The only person we have control over. So then how are we then going to meet the truth of the moment, which to me is why these kind of conversations and opportunities feel so crucial, because look at what the moment is that we don't have control over. Look at what that truth is, and then look at our own individual truths and say, well, then how am I then going to meet the moment? Because that's then present moment living, right? Stepping out, whether it's feeling a little cold outside, whether it's feeling super sweaty outside, and bringing, that's a very superficial example, but then bringing what's resonating with you. Yoga calls it spirit, Buddhism calls it the noble heart. There's probably a lot of it. If anybody else has any ideas about what it's called in other traditions, and you could probably even speak about it to a non-religious person. And the way I like to look at it is, it's what the most consistent thing is, right? When all that other stuff falls away, what is the one thing that continues to remain inside of us? And my whole idea about yoga is that it is as much about taking on these beautiful postures, tuning your six pack, working on your awesome handstand and inversion. It's ultimately about cultivating a relationship with the truth that is going to come from within, right? And then that's just one part of it. Learning how to share it and verbalize it and articulate it, that's complicated. It's years and years of work some people have to do to be able to get to this place. And it's one of the reasons I'm so glad that we're doing this. It's almost like a little bit of exposure therapy for me, because my heart was racing, at the start of this live stream. I've been using this a lot. I weirdly felt like I was about to fight somebody. Like I weirdly felt like I was about to be attacked. My heart was racing. I was getting a little shaky. I'm like going for my tea. I'm shaking a little bit. And why? Like what? We've got 4 people watching us right now. You and I are having one of the best conversations I've ever had in my entire life. Why is my heart physiologically telling me that there is something wrong with this situation? And this is making me a little emotional when everything is actually right about this situation. So Lori Gottlieb talks about it a little bit in this. I really recommend this podcast, Tim Ferriss. She was on yesterday. She talks about the practice of unknowing yourself, right? There's a little bit of unlearning and unknowing that we have to do to the parts of ourselves that are actually a little more superficial, a little more fear-based, a little more doubtful, a little more a lot of things. Unknowing that, and then re-knowing, remembering, realigning all the re's back to the place that you really are, the truth that you really have inside you.
Yes. Yeah. I just want to let Avina know that I'm not accepting video chat from you just because I'm here with Patrick. If you want to join us in the conversation, please do so in the comments. But I just wanted to let you know that's why I'm going to decline the incoming video through Instagram with you, Avina, who is in India. So thank you for joining us. It's a really amazing. Yes, but I just wanted to let you know that, yes, thank you. You are so welcome here, but just put it in the comments and we will do the best we can there. And to that avail, we might do this on a different platform where maybe people can actually be physically heard. So, if that happens, just stay connected with us here in Instagram, so because we would put the message out. So thank you for that little aside. Patrick, I want to honor what you just shared, how you felt when you came into this, and all of what you expressed in all the words. It was rich with vibration and healing and acknowledgement. So I thank you. It speaks, you got right to the heart of the heart. You know, all of these things that we could talk about, they will inevitably trickle away when we become silent and we connect with that greatest truth within. Or you can call it divine truth. So I love, oh, hi, Haisha, I miss you, I love you. We have our own truths, which I love that you bring this up. We have our own truths, but then there is ultimately that divine truth that is all of us, that is all of everything. And it reminded me of how our will is the same. You know, when we act, hopefully we are acting from a heart-centered, compassionate place, and we are acting in the world in a way that is supportive for both ourselves and others. And you could call that will divine will. Mm-hmm. So it's, or some others call it true will versus self-will. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like that was a connection in what you were getting at too in terms of truths. It's like, well, this is my truth that I am a mother, I am this, I am that. We could name all of these, for lack of term, lower self or lowercase s self things. But I just noticed I sit up taller because when I enter into that higher truth, my authentic self, it's that divine truth, for lack of a better term. It's the self with capital S, as I like to say, versus lowercase s. But they're one and the same. Mm. They are one and the same, and that's something that now that you've supported me in feeling a little more physically settled, and my heart is a little slower, and again, I'm not as flushed and embarrassed because it feels more connected. It's that place that I hope I attempt to always stay connected to as I live this human experience on this earth. And I'm doing my best. It's not always my truth in each moment, but I am doing my best in each moment. But when I connect to that place, everything else fades away.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love the thing that you say about doing your best. Because I've been using this a little bit in my yoga classes. Like, we're so cute sometimes. Like, our egos are so cute. Like, almost like you would look at a little baby and be like, you're so precious. You think that's going to... We were watching my dog earlier, even, and he wanted to jump from, like, the bed to the ottoman. And we were like, that's so cute. You think that's going to work? It's not going to work. And then he tried, and whatever. But because they don't know yet, right? They're building this understanding, learning. So in the process of the building, we have to be able to train ourselves to move less to this place when we're confronted with the situations, these scary situations like Instagram Live, talking about things you believe in. Ooh, it's terrifying. It's really hard. So why can't we actually counter that and retrain ourselves? And again, more benefits from the yoga system. This is a mind, body, soul practice, people. I love saying that because it not only plugs the yoga studio, it's named mind, body, soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
The outer affects the inner, and the inner will affect the outer. You have to let it be something that ebbs and flows between the two. I'm actually really trying to work on my posture lately, and that's a lot more from just a functional perspective. But I've been shocked at what it does to my expression. When I grow tall this way, I feel different inside. Like I almost feel like a little butterflies in my stomach or something. Like, there's something proud and knowing and supported in this position. So the retraining that we can do in these moments, and this is the moment, right? Not only the present moment right now, but this current situation that we're in is such a good time to tap into what you were saying, Shawna, about true versus self-will. And this is a new thought, but when the self-will becomes the true will, we then form a collective, right? When multiple people's self-wills become and they align with the true will, we become a collective. And we know how powerful collective action is.
Yeah.
It's hard to tap into because we're always at that place of, is it really going to make a difference if I just do this one thing? There's millions upon billions of people in this world. Is it really going to make a difference if I wash my hands for 20 seconds? The 20-second hand washing, it's practicing. It's practicing actionable change in your life with an intention. What better intention could you have than trying to keep yourself and the world healthy? So the actions may be small. We may not see their effects always. It doesn't mean that we don't take them. It's part of the responsibility aspect.
That what you're speaking to reminds me of a couple of things, or causes me to think of a couple of things. One is that ebb and flow of all the dimensions of who we are equally as important as the other. So in yoga, we talk about the koshas, which are these layers of the self, which start with the gross matter physical body, up to the bliss body, and everything in between, including the mental. And each one is equally as important as the other. So we're not going to put all our attention just on the body, but we're going to give equal attention to all parts of ourself. And the other thing that was interesting as you were talking, and I'm not sure how it's coming up, but it's just there, so I'll speak to it, is in that true will, when we're all acting from that place, that is what is going to create world peace, if you will, or world resonance, world harmony, and change, because
positive change. I miss you, Rick Sky. I miss you, Michael Heffernan. I'm not sure if this is a situation where we've exceeded our time limit, maybe, perhaps. FYI, we're not going to go on much longer. Let me get you in here, Shawna, and we'll kind of, I want to honor everyone's time here. If there's anybody who's been with us this entire hour, I really, really, really appreciate having you here. This means the world to me, and I think I can speak to Shawna too, of how meaningful.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, you're on. I just was letting you
know.
Okay. I think we probably got kicked off because we went an hour.
Okay.
maybe you and I will both kind of have a concluding thought, and while we're speaking, if anybody wants to type a comment, ask a question, share an experience, we'll kind of use the next 10 or so minutes to wrap this whole thing up. But you were kind of on a roll there, Shawna, with something really nice.
Yeah, it was the essence of it was just, it was reminding me of the crown chakra and the right to know, and trusting that you're going to know what is the loving way to act. And when we, and I'm thinking of my teacher who always asked that question, what's the loving thing? That's not necessarily what's the right thing, but what's the loving thing, which shifts so much, because I was listening to somebody today who I was feeling her sort of anxiety and concern and her.
I'm not sure what, now you are lagging for me, Shawna.
Second, you just went out, you're back. Can you say something?
You were lagging for me a little bit. I wonder if there's anything with the Bluetooth connection too. If that affects it, I don't know, but it is getting a little more laggy for me now.
How about now? Can you hear me here?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Okay, I'll just go off of this because I can hear you a little bit too.
Cool.
So anyway, I was just noticing that her desire to literally want to help everybody on the planet, but we don't have the capacity as a single person to help every other single person on the planet.
Right.
So trust. Listen, you'll know how you can help. It will come to you, especially when you allow your minds to clear and move into that silent space and move into that heart within. And trust that it'll come. And again, it might not come immediately or right away.
I really appreciate you saying that. I've been doing yoga for, I don't know, at least 10 years, kind of seriously. Seriously. I got my teacher training completed probably 7 or so years ago. But it's interesting, I've never really dove much into the chakras. And working with Joe at the studio and you have really sparked some deep inquiry on my part, and this was somebody else's thought, and I have to say that it does resonate with me. I wasn't really sure what they meant, and I think they felt a little metaphysical to me, and the metaphysical nature of the chakras, it scared me a little bit because I couldn't just look at it as fact or truth, if you will. Your words, the class that I took on the first day that I met you, they gave me enough to hook me. And it was like, oh, this stuff is psychological. This stuff is physical. This stuff is mental. It's about relationships. It is a tool and a guide for us to use. And then, yes, I will 100% get behind all the spiritual, crunchy granola, whatever. But I always do love to have the other stuff to back it up. And I really love that you've given it to me. And I love that I'm about to dive into this Anadia Judith book called Eastern Body, Western Mind, to help me do that. If for some reason you're just tuning in, we are coming to the end of our conversation here. This story will be, this live feed will be available on my story. And we're going to try to figure out a way to get it published and posted elsewhere as well. So please come back and look for it. While I'm giving my kind of final remarks here, feel free to type a comment, a question, some feedback for us maybe. But I just want to go back and almost repeat a little bit of what I've said. You know, this situation is happening to us. COVID-19, the coronavirus, the quarantine, the closing down of non-essential businesses, social distancing. To me, that is very much the what of the situation. The why of the situation is That's deep. I don't even know if I'm qualified to talk about the why of the situation. That could come from a physiological science level, medicine level. It's a little bit beyond me. It can also come from a social and economic point of view, because the why is not just the virus, but it's the way it is affecting everybody, right? Why? The when is now. It's happening in this moment. The when is a few months ago when we started to hear this stuff and how we reacted. And the when is going to be the future. For the purpose of today, let's just say the when is right now. It is the how that is going to be up to us, tapping back into what we've been talking about for this entire hour, how individuals can look within in this moment, tap in to whatever it is you want to call it, inner truth, divinity, spirit, wisdom. One kind of non-secular thing or non-religious thing that I've liked to be using lately is foundational knowledge. Just finding something that is foundational and fundamental for you to believe in, that is consistent, tapping into that place, and then linking your intentions from that place to your actions that have to do with your relationship with yourself, that has to do with your relationship with everybody else that comes into your path. Whether it's the person that you're crossing the street with, then you have a little moment of smile. Hey, we're in this thing together. I'm finding a lot more of those moments as I'm walking on the street, because New Yorkers don't typically lock eyes and smile with each other when they're going by. I'm often back in California visiting my grandparents, and we'll be out on the trail or something. They live in a beautiful, beautiful kind of ranch style area, and a lot of hills, a lot of trails. And every morning you're walking by, hey, good morning. Good morning. How are you? Can you imagine in New York? You know, we'd be exhausted. First of all. Second of all, I'm actually finding myself and other people asking, how are you doing? The mundaneness of that question is no longer, and we actually mean it. How are you doing throughout all of this? So let's let this situation inform us so that when we are past it, we are evolved, not devolved. It's this kind of stuff. It's the conversing, the connecting, the engaging, and the learning that is going to get us there. Yeah, I think that's the end of that thought for me. Probably more to come later.
I loved the how, when, what, why. I love that. And that's a really perhaps a nice conclusion, if you will, because I've been amazed at how creative people have come together, whether it's live streaming or live like this, and how we've stayed connected despite, and I heard recently that the World Health Organization might try to rebrand it as physical distancing rather than social distancing.
Ah, interesting.
I appreciate because it's been very helpful and healing and beneficial. I'm so grateful that my work is teaching yoga and that I can still connect with people even though I can't physically touch them or be in the same space as them. However, I am in the same space.
Those live stream classes, sorry to interrupt, because this might be a good little plug for us. Those live stream classes are so powerful. Whether I'm taking or teaching, I'm feeling like just the energy from everyone else practicing wherever they're practicing. And then we all pop up on the screen afterwards, and there's this joyous reunion. It's been, so if you want to be part of that, check out the link in my bio. Shawna, I don't know if you have it listed anywhere.
I normally put it in my post now because some of the times of the classes have been changing just because of this past week where the studio is getting organized. But yeah, the link in my bio will take you to my website that has stuff too.
Wow. I first of all just want to say thank you so much, Shawna. You are not only my teacher, you're my friend, this partner in conversation right now. I've learned so much. I took a lot of notes during this thing. And I'm looking forward to going back and reviewing a little bit. I really want to thank everybody who tuned in, who tuned out, and for those of you who stayed the entire time, it means more than the world to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Shawna, you want to start off?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. You're definitely, I really believe there is shamanism in you and a really deep kindred spirit. It's really amazing. I'm so glad to do this with you. And it's been actually a little more fun. I was a little nervous, but yeah. So thank you all, and thank you all who have been with us. And we'll see you soon. See you soon.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
We just wrapped
That's it.
season 4.